Oh, now, that is magic with a K. The sun is going down on this glorious June evening in the UK. I am dealing with the demoness of all PMT. It is pain on just about every level: physical, emotional, spiritual, mental. So what better than to kick back with a beer and do some witchy rambling? Hi kittens. So today with my Rambling Witch video, I'd like to begin by talking about words and phrases and how you can use them in your rituals, your spellcraft, your addresses to your deities if you do that kind of thing. You can use words in the sacred circle. You can use words to connect you to a certain kind of energy, to tether your soul to a specific intention. You can use words to make commitments. You can use words to break commitments. You can use words really to just inject yourself with all of the meaning and the magnitude that you need to manifest whatever it is that you desire. And the conversation around words and phraseology and the way that we use language in our spellcraft and ritual is one that's come up for me with a few different clients lately. It's been kind of a recurring theme, and every time I've spoken about it with a client, I have said to that client, I'm going to have to make a video about this. I have so much to say. I have so much that I feel I can give on this topic because I love words. I love words. I love language. Language is my bag, baby. I love talking. I love reading. I love listening to words. I love poetry. I'm one of those people that's a real magpie for lyrics and quotes and poetry. I just, yeah, I used to pretend to write before I even could write. Before I knew the English alphabet, I would pretend that I could write. It was almost like I knew that the feeling of writing, the feeling of holding the pen and using words to express myself would eventually give me that catharsis and that therapy, even though I didn't know then how to do it. I just had this feeling inside of me that it would help me, that it would give me what I wanted. And sure enough, I grew up and I learned the alphabet and I did start to write, and I filled notebooks and I filled journals. I know a lot of you have seen one of my video scrapbooks from way back when where I took you through some of my journals. I love journaling, I love writing, and I love language. I love using it in my magic and witchcraft specifically. It's been really useful, really helpful for me, not only in terms of the witchy stuff, but also just in a more general umbrella way. It's been great for my self-development. It's been great for me in terms of clarifying my intentions, making firm commitments, inspiring myself to continue, generating the momentum, generating the motivation. So it's been really good for that as well. I find words really inspiring, so I want to have a little ramble about that, basically. I did make a video about devotional words before I saw a client earlier today, and it was just very short and sweet because I knew that I only had about 15 minutes before I saw my client, so it was very concise. And you know what, that just does not suit me. I don't like just kind of reeling off the points and feeling like I can't relax and I can't just kind of settle into it and talk about everything that I want. It's not very me. I know that a lot of people enjoy concise videos, and I've certainly taken some flack and received some criticism for making longer videos, for sure. Some people have told me that they would love to imbibe my content, but they can't because I just go on too much and I'm too verbose, and I just use way too many words than are actually necessary. But you know what? That's me, and I think it would be very fake of me. It would be super fraudulent of me to just cut myself down and put myself into that neat little box because it's what would be convenient to other people. I'm not going to be able to continue to make videos if I don't do them the way that I want to do them, and I like to just settle in. I don't want to rush myself. I don't want to pressure myself. I'm not saying it wasn't a good video. It was a reasonably good video about the topic. I hit the main points that I wanted to hit, but you know what, this is a leisurely topic for me. This is something that I love. This is something I'm crazy about. So you know, allow me to really lean into it and enjoy it and savour talking about this, because it really is something that I really enjoy. Within my Sacred Witches circle, I've used words in a number of different ways. I have used them to devise rituals and write spells. I have used them to write addresses, either to my matron deity, to my former self. I have written addresses to the energy of the Sabbat that I was celebrating. So I've written addresses to all kinds of different things. I've written manifestos. I've written sacred statements of intention. I have written just short, punchy, powerful things on post-it notes that I think are really going to click me into whatever it is I'm trying to bring through, whatever it is I'm working on, and I place them you know, on my altar and around my altar. So I've used words for those kinds of things. I've also developed mantras and words of power that I can use over and over again on the prayer beads. There's loads of different ways in which I've used words. I've used story magic, so I've actually written a story that's really rich with symbols and territory and actions and things going on, and I've basically used the symbols and used the story as the tool of manifestation to help me create what I desire. I've written sacred poetry to my matron and then burned it in the cauldron. I've written my anger out at the altar, and burned it in the cauldron to like release it and stuff. So I have used words in a lot of different ways, and that's probably only just scratching the surface of all the things that I've used words for. And not only am I really into writing and using words that way, but I also really love using words that I've cut out of magazines. I enjoy working with the cut ups method, which is something that you can read about online. I'll leave a link for you below so you can understand more about the cut ups method if you don't understand it or if you've never heard of it. So I like to use words in a collage kind of way. I like to use found words. I like to come across words that I've just sort of like interfaced with by accident and then cut them out or write them down and see them as kind of like sacred messages from spirit, sacred messages from the all, synchronistic signposts for me. When I see clusters of words together that seem to be speaking to me, or I see like the name of a shop that seems to be really kind of speaking or coming through to me or something like that, I will often take a photograph of it on my phone or write it down. If I see like a part of an advertisement or just a bit of ripped paper somewhere that says something and I feel like it's speaking to me, again, I'm going to be writing that stuff down. I feel like the world is speaking to me a lot of the time, and why on earth shouldn't it sometimes speak in full sentences or in the English language? You know, it does. A lot of people that I do my creative magic brainstorming sessions with tend to feel stuck or stagnant or kind of in standstill when it comes to using words. They might feel lackluster, like they've got writer's block, or they might just feel really disempowered, as though they can never write something that's going to be as potent and as effectual as maybe other people write, or as maybe they imagine writing in their minds. And so there's a lot of that comes into it. You know, it's basically like helping people with ordinary writer's block, but with a witchy twist, you know. And if you don't know what a creative magic brainstorming session is, it's basically just working one-on-one with me during an hour-long or 90-minute-long session to really kind of fine-tune your witchy practice. So we talk about spellcraft, we talk about, you know, ways to really amp that up and get that working for you. We talk about connection with deity, altar setup, materials that you're using, how to feel like your witchy empowerment is there inside you for the taking. We take it down any different avenue that you find most appropriate. So if you want to work with me one-on-one and you want to talk about this witchy stuff, you want to have an interactive rambling witch experience, then click below. I will leave the purchase option for the creative magic brainstorming session. I love doing them. And words is something that does come up with those kinds of sessions a lot, just thinking about how to phrase things, how we can use words to our advantage, etc. And sometimes also just getting over like the awkwardness that comes from using words or writing words or saying words in sacred space, and really just kind of getting used to that and letting that feel empowering rather than feeling weird and just a little bit odd, you know. If you know that you want to write something like an address maybe to a new deity that you want to bring in, or that you've been working with for a while, if you want to write a really stupendous ritual that's really meaningful, that really feels like it's connecting to what it is you're trying to do, if you want to write gorgeous prayers, you know, if you want to write really epic spells that feel like they're coming alive for you, then I would really urge you never to forget that there is an inspiration gathering process that normally comes before something of that magnitude can be written. It's almost like you have to give yourself the influences, you have to give yourself the flavors, the ingredients, you have to try things, you have to do a little bit of taste testing. You have the power and you have the right to go and seek out your influences and your inspirations. Think about the kind of thing that you want to tap into, the kind of thing that you want to write for your spell or your ritual, whatever it is, and then think about what kinds of things symbolize that desire that you have. So for example, is there a particular genre of music that you feel really speaks to the kind of ritual that you would like to write? Is there a particular film that you love that really taps into the essence and the energy of that thing that you would like to write? Are there certain authors, certain poets that you have read that you found that their words have really made you come alive and tapped you into something? And can you now go back to those influences to look at how you might want to construct your ritual? Think about how you might like to write this thing that is going to be be so effectual and so appropriate for the moment. Think about the different influences, and you know, you can really imbibe influences as you are writing. When I'm doing my writing for my addresses to hell and things like that, I like to put music on. I have a playlist on YouTube of kind of like satanic meditation music that I've been collecting over time. I also use Spotify. I'm a premium Spotify user, and I find the playlist functionality on there absolutely awesome, and it's really helped me to collect songs together, tracks together that really tune me into what it is that I'm trying to create with a specific ritual or with a specific intention. And I kind of might sit there while I go through the playlist, or even just as I'm making the playlist, and certain words and phrases will start to come to me and things will begin to flow. So either as I'm listening to the playlist I've created, or indeed as I'm creating it, I'm tapping into the energy that I want to bring to it. I really love to listen to progressive house when I'm writing rituals and spells. I love to listen to witch house. I love to listen to post rock sometimes. A lot of the time it makes me too emotional in an unproductive way. And I really enjoy kind of like psychedelic stoner rock and things like that. Those kinds of music really get me into a place where I feel like I can write something that is going to be meaningful and is going to be kind of laced with my intention. And so that's something that you might want to try. And like I said as well, going to authors that inspire you. I am really one for experiencing words in a very visceral way. I remember when I was younger and I first started to write my own spells and rituals and words for the Sabbats and stuff like that, I would love to get seriously into some Major Anne Sexton and sometimes Sylvia Plath, those kinds of, you know, female poetesses of that era, and really just imbibe their words. And it would really leave me with this hankering to write spells, this hankering to write witchy poetry, to write really dense, very rich, very textured ritual, and think about how I was going to set it all out and how I was going to read it all out and how it was going to really define that moment for me and shift the energy for me in some way. And a lot of people can do that, you know, just think about the kinds of words, the kinds of writing, the kinds of quotes, maybe motivational speeches you've heard, historical speeches you've heard. What kinds of words have inspired you? What kinds of lyrics have you heard that have really taken all the hairs on the back of your neck right up? Do you have lyrics or poetry tattooed on you that could form the basis for your inspiration for whatever it is that you want to write for your sacred circle? So it's really about using the inspiration first and just letting yourself steep into that. Let me move over here a little bit because it's getting a little bit darker now. So yeah, really just imbibe your inspiration. Don't try to start from this really dry, uninspired place and try to force yourself through it, but really just look at using your inspiration, surrounding yourself with things that inspire, the smells that inspire, the songs that inspire, that kind of thing, and go from there. Sometimes it helps to just go for something completely random, like if you're reading a book at the moment and you've got it near you. I've got this book here, Women's Voices, essays that have been collected by Brandy Williams from women in magic. So if I just do a little bit of the old bibliomancy trick, go to a random page, put my finger at a certain point on the page, what's the word? And the word is devotee. Devotee of the Blessed Virgin and practitioner of transformational witchcraft. So I've just put my finger on the word devotee in this book. Imagine me using that as the jumping off point, just something that simple, just putting it in the hands of spirit, just being like, okay, I don't know what to write about, I don't know where to start, I don't know where this ritual ought to begin or what shape it's going to take. You know, let me just begin with that word devotee and just think about constructing a ritual around that kind of thing, or a sacred piece of devotional writing around that. Think about what the word devotee means to me, or just begin a passage with the word devotee and just see where it goes, you know. So it's about kind of finding your way to flow into it as well, I think. If you're finding that you are feeling stiff and uninspired and you would like to just have some practice and just oil the machine a little bit, I would recommend going to a website called languageisavirus.com, and this website has been one of my secret weapon websites for a really long time. I have jealously guarded this website, but it's time for me to tell anyone who doesn't know about its existence. It's a really cool little website that's been going for ages now, and it's kind of like a homage and a sign of respect to the beat poets and the way that they did things and the way that they wrote and stuff and the way that they used language, which I love because I love the beat writers, the poets, and also the novelists. And so if you go to languageisavirus.com, you will find that there is a really awesome collection of writing exercises on there. There are lists lists of writing exercises on there that authors and essayists and professors have created. There are also individual writing exercises that are suggested. You'll also find journal prompts in there. You'll also find some handy little gadgets and gizmos in there, like you'll find a cut-ups machine, which actually takes a passage of writing for you and then actually just jumbles it all up so it's in a completely disparate order, and there's like, you know, nothing makes any sense anymore, and you can kind of dive into that nonsensical palace of wordy wonderment and really allow that to form the basis for something really creative in terms of ritual writing. So try languagesavirus.com, see if you can actually just start to oil the machine, stretch your legs, try some new things, and that might kind of get you back into the driver's seat again. Know that you do not have to write your rituals, your spells, your prayers, any of that stuff. You don't have to write that in any way that you've seen other people write it. You can write it in your own way. You can do it in a way that feels right for you. You don't have to do the sentence structure the same. You don't have to outline it in the same way. You're not obligated to use anything that you found in a book. Even if the book says use this, use these exact words, fuck all that shit, toss that out, you know. I would always say that if you find something that springs up to you from the pages of a book and you feel like it is going to do the job and it feels instantly empowering, then yeah, absolutely go to it, use it. But I feel like a lot of the time that doesn't happen, and a lot of people, particularly newcomers to the craft, end up feeling like they need to go with what's been written in a book because it's been written by somebody in authority in some way. And that's very much not the case. It's much better to inject your ritual, your spellcraft, any workings that you do in or outside of the circle with yourself, with your memories, your reflections, your ideas, the essence of who you are. You've got to put your stamp on it, okay? So feel free to take the skeleton of something that you've seen that you think might work or has something inside it that's fizzy for you, but then put your mark on it, put your stamp on it. I very much did this, for example, with the Prayer of Our Lady, which I used to love as a child. Every single time I heard the Prayer of Our Lady or read it anywhere, I just felt like I was lighting up like a fucking Christmas tree. It just was so powerful, you know? And I took the Prayer of Our Lady when I was older and I started working with personified female deity, and I kind of deconstructed it and I customized it and tailored it to my own needs so that it could look like something that I could work with the Dark Mother with, you know? So it was something that I deconstructed and I made it into something for my matron and for the archetype of the Dark Mother, the Lady of Death, whatever you want to call it. So I kind of took something that was already in existence that I knew turned me on, you know? I knew it was something that I could get behind, something that was potent to me, and I just took it and basically deconstructed it and made it into something that fit my purposes. You can do that, you know. I wouldn't recommend doing that and then publishing it and saying it's your own work and not giving shine to the original person. That would be very bad. But if you're just doing it for your own personal circle, your own personal workings, absolutely take the skeleton of stuff that already is in existence and play with it and make it your own, you know, put your own potency into it. I know that a lot of people who work with deity make petitions to deity in their rituals or in their addresses. I don't do that because that's not how I personally work with my matron. That's not how I work with disembodied intelligences. I see my matron deity as a mirror of some of the most potent and some of the most important and often some of the most wholly necessary characteristics and energies that reside within me. And I see that mirror image as an incredible sacred shortcut that gets me to the heart of those energies and wakes them up inside of me and shows me that I too am goddess and I too am capable of holding these energies and using them to my advantage. So I don't want to ask hell for help with anything. I don't want to ask her to intervene, to step in, if you like, and act on my behalf. Quite the contrary, I want to use my words to conjure up the hell energy within me and really become one with her in the knowledge that she is me and I am her, you know? So it's much more like that. So I haven't told myself that I need to set my rituals up to include petition, because for me petition feels disempowering. I don't want to ask a disembodied intelligence for help. I want to know that I contain that same spark of empowerment that any disembodied intelligence would hold, and I want to use it as that mirror, you know? So if petition would work for me in a certain situation, I would use it, because I believe in belief as a tool. So I believe I can shift out of that mindset and go into a mindset of petition and a more kind of polytheistic outlook. But because I don't work that way normally and it doesn't empower me, I don't write write my rituals that way. I don't write my addresses that way. And you don't need to either. You can absolutely write things out in a way that is connected to your ideology and works with your framework. Bear in mind that you don't need to have everything be scripted in a ritual or a spell, or in your sacred circle work, whatever you happen to be doing. You don't need everything to be scripted. You can have half scripted and half spontaneous. You can script something out and then allow yourself to speak spontaneously or do things spontaneously if that desire arises at the time, if you feel called to do that. So it's not about laying everything out and deciding that that's how it's going to be before you get into sacred space. Sometimes for a lot of people it's just having that outline, the general thing that you want to do, the general way that you want to start it and end it, for example, or some of the key things that you're going to want to be saying, but you're still going to leave plenty of room for the unscripted things to happen as well if you want to. And whether they just happen in your head, whether you whisper them under your breath, or whether you know, boomingly, loudly state them with the real kind of like passion and assertiveness, those things that come through in the moment that kind of seem to be channeled from somewhere beyond you rather than from you, you know, those things are sacred. Those things are so important. Do not discount or discredit or downplay those things that you say with spontaneity, because that stuff is gold. That stuff is really sacred. I wouldn't pressure myself at all to stick to a script that I'd created. I wouldn't pressure myself at all to ensure that I said the exact words that I wrote down at the time. I know that the circle changes things. I know that it is its own little universe, you know, it is its own biodiversity. It has its own little energy in there somehow. So I know that it's going to change the game, and that things might come to me in the moment that seem or feel to be more appropriate to me. And I've given myself that freedom, and I think that's a lot of what I would encourage, and it's a lot of what I teach one-on-one with my clients, and it's a lot of what I hope I've put through in some of my videos as well, is just that importance to give yourself sovereignty over your magical journey, over your spiritual practice, just letting yourself do what feels right in the moment. And if you're going to deviate from the script that you set for yourself, who the fuck's marking your work? Who's telling you that you can't do that? You know, no one's telling you that that's wrong. It's your journey, it's your kingdom, and that's the beauty of designing something on your own. That's the beauty of having your own little tradition. So really run with that. If you feel like something is coming through that isn't on the script, that you hadn't written down, doesn't matter, just go with it and flow with it in the moment. I tend to find that there is an important difference between asking myself what something means and then asking myself how something affects me. I know that there are a lot of people that feel that anything that they have on their altar, anything they have in sacred space, anything they write in their rituals or do in their spells has to have meaning and intention behind it, and the meaning has to be clarified, the meaning has to be seen and known in order for that thing to be included, whether it is a sentence, whether it is an object, whether it is an action, you know. But for me, I'm much more interested in how does it affect me. If I'm writing ritual or I'm writing a spell, I'm trying to figure out something that I want to do to bring something to pass, and a sentence comes into my mind that seems to be complete gobbledygook that's just come out of nowhere, or I find something or read something that doesn't seem to be relevant to what I'm doing but it feels powerful and punchy, I don't really ask myself what does it mean, how does it fit in, how can I make it fit in if it doesn't quite fit in. I just go much more for how does it affect me, how does it make me feel. And if it seems to me that it feels really effectual and it feels really deep and it feels like it's going to bring something to the proceedings, then I absolutely let myself put it in, because again, who is marking me, who is looking over my shoulder, who is telling me that I can't do that? You know, there is no dogma. So it's my house and I just put things where I want them, and if it only makes sense to me, then so be it. You know, it's probably more potent because it only makes sense to me, or doesn't even make sense to me, but it's something that I feel is going to work for me. It's just something that I know beyond knowing is going to work for me. You know, I think there's something really sacred and important about that. I think that by itself could be considered more powerful than being able to explain exactly always why something is on my altar or something is in my ritual. You know, I like to have a bit of mystery. I like to just be like, I don't know, I just wanted that troll pencil topper on the altar. I just felt like it wanted to be there. It wanted to hang out with me. It had something to fucking say. So there it is. I just wanted to put it there, and there it is, you know. I much prefer that kind of vibe, to be honest with you. I prefer letting myself do things and maybe even just surprising myself sometimes and being like, you know, I wonder why that. I wonder why I feel like doing that. But okay, fair enough. I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to let it be what it wants to be. I think there's so many words that we say in sacred space, or that we use in our spellcraft, or we put in our spell bottles, or whatever it is. There's so much language that we use in a certain order that is not recycled, that is not used again. It is a one-time thing. And I think that can be something sacred about it. Like, I know that a lot of people write sacred poetry, like devotional poetry, to their matrons and patrons. And, you know, once that poem is burned in the cauldron, or, you know, buried or thrown away or otherwise disposed of, whatever, I feel like the fact that it was a one-time thing, and the fact that it was written with so much love and so much honour being put into it, that is a part of what makes it so sacred and so effective for the communion between that practitioner and the deity that they're connecting with, obviously. But I also think there's a lot to be said for words which are repeated over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? Like mantras, for example, where actually there is this energy that gathers around these sacred words that are said over and over again. And I think in one's individual practice, this is especially true with things like the words that we choose for the opening and closing of the circle, the words that we may choose to do our devotional prayer beads for a matron or patron, those words that maybe we use over and over again. Those words start to be imbibed with an incredible amount of power. The power just starts to gather around those words because we're using them over and over. You could say that amen is such a word, you know, amen, amen, potato, potato, tomato, tomato, and so on. You could say that that is just such a word. I know that for me, I have words that I use while I'm going through the prayer beads that are specifically dedicated to my matron, and I've used those words since 2012. It's now 2017 at the time of filming this, so those words have gathered potency. I remember them off by heart. I say them when I'm feeling anxious or depressed, or when I need a lift, or when I need some illumination, you know. And I wrote those words. I wrote those words, and they're words that stick in my head now, because I've just used them over and over again. And that kind of thing can be potent. So think about the kinds of words you may want to design to be used over and over again, but also don't be afraid to just use language as a one-time dealio. There is something so sacred about that. For example, you wouldn't write the exact same love letter to your current lover than you did to your last lover, you know? You want to write fresh words that represent how you feel right now about the lover that you have now and where you are in your life now. You don't want to recycle. You don't want to rehash some old shit. You want to give the love that's in your heart at this moment, and that's why it can be so important to write each address from scratch, write each ritual from scratch, you know, really go with what's going on for you now rather than what was going on for you back then. You don't have to use words at all. That's the last thing that I want to say about this. You don't have to use words at all. You can use imagery, you can use music, you know, you can just make tones and sounds with your throat. You don't need to use language. Language can be completely fucking omitted from anything that you do in magic, you know. I don't think language can be omitted from the thinking process, you know. We think using the language that we have picked up. It's not the only way of it's not the only determining factor in cognition, but it's certainly a determining factor in things like, I think, the design of rituals and stuff like that. But you don't need to bring language into it. You don't need to use words, you know. There's so many other ways that you can do what you want to do. There's so many other ways that you can set intention, that you can even do spells, you know. I think you could manifest something perfectly fine by making a piece of music to represent what your intentions are, by painting a picture of how you want to feel or what your intention is going to bring to you, or painting a picture of exactly what it is that you fucking want and never saying a word about it, but just imbibing that picture with your intention. There's so many different ways that you could do it, and I'm really just scratching the surface with this video. I don't know if I've ever said this in a video before, but I feel really called to say, and I feel compelled to say, that when I talk about going where I find power and potency and using that in my craft, I'm really talking about every area of life. So if I, for some reason, have felt like I've lost my witchy potency, I don't feel powerful, I don't feel like I can make things happen, I don't feel like I can take control in that way, or I feel spiritually stuck, or whatever it is, I will have a look at whereabouts the last time that I felt powerful actually was. Whereabouts was I last feeling like I was potent and switched on and ready to do something? And it might have been while I was cooking dinner for my friends. It might have been while I was out dancing, listening to a particular track that I was loving. It might have been when I was last making love, or when I was last making art, you know. It might have been when I was going for a run. I will try to tap into the last time that I felt powerful and that I felt effectual in the world in some way, and I may go back to that particular activity, or I may just creatively visualize myself there so that I can start to really bring the power to my witchy activities, to whatever I'm trying to do at the altar or whatever I'm trying to do in that moment. So for me, power is not something that I compartmentalize, and that's something that I learned and picked up just from being a witch, from identifying as a witch, was that there's no point in compartmentalizing power. There's no point in telling myself that I'm either powerful or not powerful in this situation, or powerful or not powerful in this situation. If I feel powerful, potent, ready to do something strong, resilient, effectual in this part of my life, I know that I can take some of that power, I can funnel some of that power, I can borrow some of that power and bring it to the altar. I can bring it to my witchhood. And that's something that I think is important. And maybe that will come across as abstract to some people, but I just really find that when I'm feeling disempowered as a witch, I can have a look at where I'm feeling empowered elsewhere. And also this works the other way too, and this is another thing that I really want to communicate in this video, is that if you oh my god, I just had a massive brain fart there. I'm so glad I can do jump cuts, because that would have been such a dull minute of me going, what was I going to say? Oh, the fuck was I going to say? Yeah, so anyway, sorry. If you can identify, basically, whereabouts you feel disempowered in other areas of your life, and you start to focus on those things and fix those things, or draw your attention to those things, you may find that the power and the potency that you are lacking as a witch begins to grow. So for me, it's also about making sure that I don't compartmentalize my my activities as a witch and my ambitions as a witch. So if I'm feeling lackluster, if I'm feeling out of sorts, if I'm feeling like I can't make things happen, or if I'm just not drawn to the altar, I will look at where I feel disempowered elsewhere in life. Whereabouts am I feeling lackluster in other areas? And I may feel that I'm not as secure with money as I want to be, that I'm not saving as much as I want to be saving, or I've had some unexpected expenses and it's making me feel unsettled. Or I might feel that, you know, there's actually quite a lot of laundry to be done, there's quite a lot of stuff everywhere, there's quite a lot of things I need to put away. Or I might find that there are messages I need to reply to, there are friends that are waiting on answers from me, and I'll tune in to those areas of disempowerment, and I'll be like, I'm feeling lackluster there, or I'm feeling pressured there, I'm feeling like I don't have power there, so let me just go and sort that out, let me just go and do this. And when I come back to the altar, I might find that things have loosened up and I've kind of oiled that machine, if you will. And that is so useful. That is a really useful technique that I have practiced over a certain amount of time, where I've noticed that, again, I can't compartmentalize my witchhood. I can't say to myself, you know, I'm trying to be empowered and effectual and pumped up at the altar, I'm trying to do something, but then if something's falling to shit in another area of my life, you know, and I'm not paying attention to that, and I'm trying to put that to the side, it could well be having an effect on the caliber of working that I can do, the caliber of result that I can garner. I'm going to say something now that I think would definitely help me to hear, and something that I have definitely kind of posited to some clients lately and I've been thinking about lately, and that is that, you know, everything can be imbibed with spiritual intention, everything can be a spiritual act. And this is something that I think I forget over and over and over and over and over and over again, and I know I'm not alone here. I think you get to certain points in the year, for me it's certain points in the year where, like, I start really strong with the intention to see everything as a spiritual act and everything as a dedication to spirit and to my matron or to me or whatever, and then over the course of the year I just get into these slumps where I forget these things and I go off course. And so it helps me to just kind of recenter and re-remember, if you will. And so I want to kind of impart to anybody out there watching this that might need to hear it, that everything that you do can be witchy. Everything that you do can be spiritual. When you're in your kitchen and you're making food, bless that food, put positive intention into that food. If you're giving a friend or a partner a massage, a back massage, if you're helping them with some kind of physical therapy, if you're soothing them, if they're upset and you're stroking their hair, that is a magical act. Put your energy and your good vibes into that focus, concentrate, really pour forth what you've got to give them, the compassion, the belief that you have in who they are and who they're trying to be, what they're trying to do. You know, send that love to them in a way that could only be described as witchy, you know, as shaman-like behaviour. When you're decluttering your home, you can also be cleansing and blessing your home. When you're getting to that corner that had a load of clothes or books in it, you know, and you're neatening and straightening it, put a little sunshine down there, put a little bit of glitter down there, send your cosmic disco ball vision down into those areas of the room and really imbibe them with your intention and imbibe them with your energy. When you're cleaning out your pet vivarium or cage or whatever, or your cat litter, you know, leave good intention there for the animal, cleanse for the animal too, you know, those kinds of things. I love doing this kind of thing. For me lately, my workouts have been dedicated to certain things. I've dedicated workouts to my patron and my matron. I've dedicated workouts to the divine feminine. I dedicate workouts to the memory of people lost in tragic events. Like, I really think about these things, I connect to these things, and I dedicate that energy, that focus, that time and that commitment to those things. And that to me makes it spiritual. That makes it witchy. That makes it not just this thing that I've got to do, that I've got to get through, that might not be very fun, that I might not feel particularly dedicated to in that moment, but it makes it into a spiritual act. And that is something that can be awesome to do. If you work with a patron or matron and you feel a lot of love and affection towards that particular figure, that essence, that energy, that archetype, however you personally see it through your framework, try dedicating your workouts and your, you know, your creative efforts or whatever. Dedicate those things to your matron or patron. Give yourself in the service of your matron or patron in that, for that time. You know, use that time as a devotional. Make it into a devotional act. I see the things that I do for my physical and mental well-being as not just devotional acts for spirit or for my matron, but also as devotional acts to the spark of divinity that resides inside me. But it's whatever helps me to get through the task in that moment. It's whatever helps me to feel that it is a devotional in that moment. You can see it as your time to have that sacred conversation. You can see it as your time to really focus on what something or someone really means to you, you know. And this is really, I suppose, all coming back to mindfulness, but with a little like extra witchy twist to it. So it is coming back to the moment, but it's really making these things into a dedication, and especially things that are going to take effort, things that you're struggling with, things that you're really trying to push yourself to do but maybe finding difficult, even though you know that they're the best thing for you. Remember to dedicate those efforts to something maybe greater than yourself, or to the most potent part of yourself, however it works for you. And you will really see how potent it is to do that, you know, how powerful it can be to dedicate your efforts to something or someone and have that be the very thing that sees you through to the finish line. All your chores can be devotionals, you know, all of those little responsibilities that you have can be devotionals. They can be chances for you to be your best self and to really identify with what is most important to you. I wanted to talk a little bit about the relationship with deity and how that can become a little bit kind of lackluster and a little bit drab over time. There are some people that go through a certain like patch, a certain phase in their path where they worry that they're not connecting to a matron or patron anymore. They worry that the spark is gone. They worry that their matron or patron was never really supposed to be that figure to begin with in their practice, and it can be really painful. And I just want to say that I think sometimes we need to meet a matron or patron from the new place. We need to be honest and upfront about the fact that we've changed and we've evolved as human beings, and actually as a result of that, very often our connection with a matron or patron will move on too. So imagine when you've had a friend in your life for a really long time, and you met at a certain point and you got to know each other at that certain point, and the meeting process and the kind of familiarizing process was really intense when you first met. You spent a lot of time together, you really got down to the nitty-gritty of what you'd both been through and what kinds of stories represented the lives that you'd lived and stuff. But then over time there's a familiarity that kind of becomes complacent, and it's that complacency sometimes that can also happen between yourself and a deity that you're working with or have dedicated yourself to. to. It's basically like you think you know the story, and it's like you think that you know the energy that resides between the two of you and what you're achieving together, or what the deity means to you and how they commune with you. But actually what's happened is you've moved on a lot since you first interacted, or since that deity first made themselves known. So really what it's about is honouring that, recognising that, realising that that is not a bad thing, and actually just reintroducing yourself from this new place where you are now. And you can really do that, and I just wanted to kind of impart that, I suppose, in a way, is that is possible. It's possible to say, hey, you've been in my life for a while, I love and honour you still. I've shed a few skins since I really last felt that I introduced myself to you and let you know where I am and what's going on with me, and I want to kind of meet you from this new place in my world. I want to update my relationship with you and bring this fresh energy to it. I think the relationships we have with any like disembodied intelligences, any archetypes, anything like that, they are subject to change and evolution, just exactly the same way human relationships are, and this is something that we need to recognise, and it's something that can be okay. It doesn't have to be scary, it doesn't have to be sad, it can be okay, it can be part of the journey forward, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to lose complete contact with a deity you've been working with, or that it was the wrong move, or that you somehow made the wrong decision. It's just that you've changed and evolved over time, and the way that that certain deity interacts with you or fits into your version of who you are or what you're trying to achieve will inevitably change. But you can always reintroduce, you can always start dating again, you can always say, hey, we need to spend more time together, we need to kind of update what this relationship is and figure out what it could be from here, because I've changed, things have moved on, like we've evolved as a combined energy force, you know. So I wanted to end on that today, and thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. I have really loved it. I hope that your witchy journeys are going well. If there's anything that you would like me to talk about in the next Rambling Witch video, or in a video in general, let me know below and I'll definitely take it into consideration. Much love, baby cakes. Blessed be.